eNCA's Siphamandla Goge has also traversed and crisscrossed the province of KwaZulu-Natal, taking in the full extent of the devastation, engaging with local communities. So 4 weeks on, Siphamandla, from that, the onset, more than 4 weeks now actually, from the onset of the initial floods, you've been talking to a lot of communities, many of them still dislocated in terms of their lives and livelihoods, many of them still remaining with unanswered questions as to the whereabouts of their loved ones.
Indeed, it's been very devastating. But before I proceed, allow me to pick up from where that one resident who spoke to my colleague Mangoba Mchunu said about the infrastructure. 2 days ago, I covered the Provincial Elective Conference of the South African Communist Party in KwaZulu-Natal. The General Secretary of the Communist Party, Dr. Blade Nzimande, said the same thing about the infrastructure. In fact, he said, yes, no one can prevent any natural disaster, but we can mitigate the impact if we focus on the infrastructure. He said currently South Africa is still using the old apartheid infrastructure, and something has got to be done about the current infrastructure when it comes to issues of infrastructure related to water and stuff. So that point has been coming up now and again. Even ordinary people on the ground that we've been interviewing have been raising the very same point. But going back to what happened about a month ago, or more than a month ago, those fears have been triggered by what has just happened yesterday night. Yesterday I was in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban in particular, one of the hardest hit areas during the recent floods. And many people there were calling their family members across the province, calling their loved ones, because the latest installment of heavy rains has triggered, anxiety, brought back those fears, and people are worried. They say every time you hear the sound of the rain, you start to get worried about what will be the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
So some people, as we speak, have not found their loved ones. If I'm not mistaken, according to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, there were more than 80 people that were still missing. Take, for instance, one family in Inanda, the Mdlalose family, who lost 10 family members. They were able to find 5 family members. They buried those ones, but they were still looking for more family members that were still missing. Not only them, but I did a story about the Memela family also, somewhere outside of Pinetown in KZN. They were still looking for 3 more family members that were missing. Yesterday, I got a call from the very same family that said, you know what, we are worried about the latest installment of rains because it will hamper those search and recovery operations. We are still looking for our loved ones who are still missing. But let me tell you, the challenge about the latest installment of these heavy rains is that you will have services such as water, electricity, and the network connection being cut off again. Many people spent more than a month without being connected. It took a lot of time to repair and rebuild the electricity infrastructure, water infrastructure. And now with these heavy rains now, it means those efforts will be derailed again, and people will suffer in terms of accessing those basic services such as water, electricity, and, the network connection. Let's take a listen to what some of the residents we spoke to earlier on during the first installment of the floods had to say about those challenges.
Sawugcina ngolosithathu baba naku ngelanga lesikhukhula nje ugesi etshele emnyama amanzi ngolosithathu konke nogesi okubhlungu kunakho konke mina ngihlale eGiba Gorge njengoba ngilana ngale Pinetown ayikho igesi zimukile izindlu zabantu akaze sibone amaphoyisa sicela ngani yami ngoba usuzowafika celela abaphoyisa azobheka omakhona lamambe kwade bewu4 abamukile akaze kufike umuntu azobheka abakatholakala uhambile imizi ewu6 engakhelene nabo kodwa mina ngoNkulunkulu ngasinta nguzalele emtolo mina igama siyacela ngani yami wenza amaminzi uthumelele nje ukuthi bazobhekwa ngoba kumele bafihlwe phela ngesizotho ugesi ke yamanzi asayiphatha sawazi konke no paraffin asinalutho njenganyama
amanzi nogesi izonke lezi zinto nje yabo ugesi sawugcina nini amafoni awasebenzi inetwork ayisebenza asikwazi nokuthinta ihlobo ezikude nje bade kuneyikhukhula nje ukuthi sibuze ukuthi banjani asikwazi ukwenza lutho ugesi awukho ukudla kuyasibolela emafridge njengoba ngikhuluma nje kubolile futhi hayi nokuthi kubolile amanzi awekho so ngumciciyelo nje yonke into ngoba ngeke uthathe lamanzi alana uthi wenza ngawo koqala kune covid manje fanele sigeze izandla yonke into yenza ugeze izandla sikwazi ukugeza izandla ngendlela esifisayo.
So those are some of the voices of residents, and they're important, Siphamandla, in locating us in terms of the difficulty that people have faced with networks and networks broadly, not just networks in the sense of cell phone communication, but also water, electricity, those pipeline industries that we always talk about. This, as government is reflecting on what can be done better in terms of disaster readiness and preparedness and climate change mitigation. The AmaZulu King has also been speaking about this situation. King Misuzulu actually believes, is looking into the spiritual aspect of things and believes that this is, in a way, a curse.
Indeed, that's what he said the last time. He said usually in an African culture and setup, rain is regarded as a blessing. But the latest installment of rain has been regarded as a curse by him. He says it cannot be that more than 400 people can die like that. Many still missing, property destroyed. You know, this has affected the KwaZulu-Natal economy and the South African economy as a whole. Remember that one of the biggest ports in the country and in Africa is in KwaZulu-Natal, in eThekwini, which was the West Heat area. Not only eThekwini as a region, but other districts such as Ilembe as well. So AmaZulu King has had to postpone his coronation, which was due to be held on the 28th of May, if I'm not mistaken. He said he cannot be celebrating when his father's people are under this situation. Of course, with the latest tragedy as well, questions will be raised to say what will happen moving forward with that coronation, because things have not improved in KwaZulu-Natal. Many people are still not connected to basic services. Many roads and bridges are being fixed as we speak. So AmaZulu King, together with businessman Patrice Motsepe, visited some of the community members that were affected, and you know, he spoke to those family members and said to them, or should I say, he spoke to some community members who would have lost their loved ones, who were taken to a neighboring or nearby community hall. He said to them, the situation is bad. The way we look at it, these heavy rains are just a curse for now, but it's something that we will overcome. Let's take a listen.
Sithintekile sishaqekile sonke kubuhlungu sithi sikhuluma nje njengamanje kunabantu abasacingwa abangakatholakala uthi ubheka isimo sesibalo esiphezulu kakhulu esishaqisayo ukuthi awu ngoba siyazi ngokwesintu sethu ukuthi imvula iyake be isibusiso kodwa sibona ngathi siqalekisiwe kulokhu okusho ukuthi futhi sikhona lapho kumele ukuthi uNkulunkulu ongumdali umnikazi wezinto zonke kubalekile ukuthi sikhuleke kuyena sibuze ukuthi asikhanyisele ukuthi awu ifeeling ngaka ubhlungu bungaka senzeni kwaZulu ngoba leli Zulu lena besilo libonisile ukuthi mningi umonakalo oyenzekile nosomabhizinisi bathintekile ngendlela abathinteke ngayo lelifu elivelele lapha esifundeni kusho khona ukuthi kumele ukuthi sivule amehlo sicabange ukuthi impilo ibheke phi lapha esiya khona.
And Siphamandla, just your own personal reflections on this. It's quite easy to be in the moment and in go mode. One story to another, one region to another, one family, and this tragedy, that tragedy. But I suppose at some point it plays back as a reel in your head. As you reflect on the past month or so, what are some of the moments, stories that haunt you? I know you mentioned the family that lost 10 people, but I imagine that they are among a number of other truly devastating stories that you've heard.
A number of them, but three stand out for me. One is a story about Ubabunkosi, who's from Emaudi in Enanda. His daughter, 15-year-old, was coming back from school. She was swept away. At the time, she had not been found, and community members were helping him to look for that daughter. And, you know, he found a tie that he said to me, I'm the one who puts it together, who ties it for her because she can't do it. You know, when he picked that up and he confirmed to me that this is it, I can tell that it belongs to her. That was moving. But also the Gumbi family just outside Hillcrest, they lost 3 children. I think 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and I can't recall the third one. Probably somewhere, I think 2 were 13 and 1 was 6 or 8. 3 children, school going, very innocent looking girls, all of them. disappeared. You know, to interview their mothers, talking about their memories, and simply saying we have accepted the fact that they are gone. We just need their bodies so that we can bury them. Another one was that of a Sibia family in Inanda, Mzinyati. Ubabu Sbia's son was sleeping with his wife and 2 children. All of them were washed away when the house collapsed. They had not found a 3-year-old at the time. They had to bury these other 3 family members, and the 3-year-old was still missing. When you listen to the grandfather explaining the pain of losing his son, you know, the daughter-in-law, and the grandchild while looking for another one who's still missing, you know, the aspect of it about children, not to say adults do not matter, but when you hear parents expressing their grief and sorrow about losing their children, it really hurts.
Yeah, all right. Siphamandla, thank you for your time and your reflections here on eNCA. The senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge, part of the special that we've put together, reflecting on the extensive flooding and devastation and loss of life in KwaZulu-Natal over the last month and a half or so, including what has happened recently in the form of the most recent floods over the last 24 to 48 hours.